Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be covering this session's update to the eraser exercise. Although it builds on what we've done up to this point, in other ways, it's also quite a departure from it. For this session, we're leaving the nose and the surrounding areas behind. Now the focus is going to shift to your entire body. You're going to do it over your whole body, one small section at a time, beginning at the top of your head and moving down to your feet. So, starting at the very top of your head, you're going to imagine a 1 inch by 1 inch to 3 inch by 3 inch section. So that's the range. No smaller than 1 inch by 1 inch, no larger than 3 inches by 3 inches. That's about 2.5 by 2.5 centimeters to a range of about 7.5 by 7.5 centimeters for those of you that use the metric system. The moment you have identified that section, that 1 by 1 to 3 by 3 section, what you're going to do is sense whatever you can that's on that part of your body, just like you did with your nose, just like you did with your upper lip, except this time, the moment you sense something, the moment you sense anything, you're going to immediately move over to an adjacent 1 by 1 to 3 by 3 inch section of your skin, and you're going to do it again. You're not going to label it as gone or anything like that. You just notice any sensation, and the very first sensation you notice, immediately when you notice it, you're going to move on to the next section. Then you're going to do that again and again and again until you've literally covered the entire outer surface of your body, if you can get that far during the course of an hour. If you start out with a slightly larger section, like 3 inches squared, that's fine, but eventually you want to get down to a section that's more like 1 inch squared. Remember, there's no reason to stress yourself out. It will work just fine either way. However, over time, you should try to get this square closer to 1 inch squared than 3 inches squared. You can move in any pattern that works for you, starting from the top of your head on down. Many people, for example, have their squares form a spiral-like pattern that starts at the top of their head and slowly wraps around their body as they proceed all the way down to their feet. My experience is that people devise different strategies to use for their arms and legs, which obviously don't follow a single straight path like the torso does. For example, they might start with their head and then their neck and then their shoulders and then go down one arm all the way down to the tips of their fingers and then jump over and go all the way down on the other arm to the tips of each finger and then jump back up to where they left off near the shoulders and spiral their way down their torso to their hips. And then when they get to their legs, do the same thing, one at a time. They might pick an initial leg, go all the way down to the tip of each toe, and then jump back up to their hips and start down the other leg and proceed in a similar fashion. You get the idea. Generally, you want to be directional from the top of your head and systematically move towards the direction of your feet. Some people ask if they can start at their feet and move up to their head, claiming that this is more effortless for them. Traditionally, practices did this from head to toe, but if it makes a huge difference to you, then sure, why not? You can also experiment with this and see which one works better for you. Remember, in this program, we're all about experimentation. Another thing that you may notice is that by the time you're down to the tip of your little toe or the tip of your finger, you might have to shrink your 1 inch square down even further. That's completely fine. Do things like that whenever you need. Your goal is to literally hit every part of the surface of your skin, including the parts that might not initially seem obvious, like the inside folds of your ears or between your butt cheeks. If there's skin, you want to be going over it with 1 inch to 3 inch squares. Whatever size works best for you and doesn't introduce stress into the exercise for you. Let's talk a bit more about what you should be looking for. At this point, literally any sensation is fine with one exception that I'll cover in a moment. Things that are fine include pressure, air temperature, itches, tingles, or other energetic feeling sensations, clothing touching your skin, basically anything else that you can feel on your skin. Think of this just like when you're watching your breath. You want to interfere as little as possible and see what's there. The moment you notice any sensation at all, bam, you're on to the next square. In addition to normal skin sensations, you might also find yourself noticing something else. It could best be referred to and identified as a sense of aliveness in the skin or body on the spot that you're focusing on. This counts as a valid sensation for purposes of this exercise, but it also warrants a few extra details. It can show up in a lot of different ways, and you just kind of know it when you feel it. One way it might show up is as a super alive feeling tingly sensation on one part of your skin, for example. Occasionally, someone will have this over most or all of their skin when they start this exercise, which is why I want to make sure that I mention it up front. Usually, this just starts at one spot on the skin. Now, it might just stay localized there, or it might grow over time to encompass even more of the skin. When you encounter this, it's worth noting its location and going back after you're done with the eraser exercise to start putting some time and specialized attention on it. It's also a good idea to focus on it over the course of your day if you can sense it when you're not meditating. This type of sensation has been a portal for people to reach fundamental well-being with. Mostly, this seems to happen by paying attention to it, really getting into the sensations and increasingly differentiating how rich they are and how complex they are, and having them grow to encompass more of the body. They seem to always be there in the body, however, most of us don't sense them. This is definitely not a prerequisite for fundamental well-being, and there are many people who experience fundamental well-being who have never had this experience. The one thing to look out for and try to avoid is an artificial sensation that's produced by your attention. Sometimes when people move their attention from location to location, the first sensation they notice is the same or similar to the last. If you pretty much feel the same sensation all over your entire body or over large parts of it, and you wouldn't classify it as a feeling like aliveness or something like temperature or a breeze blowing on it or an itch or something like that, what you might actually be feeling are sort of fake or ghost type sensations that are caused by your attention itself. Now, these are just mentally created. They're not actual sensations on your body. You might even be able to feel it moving from square to square, location to location. While this is technically a sensation in the mental sense of the word, we're looking for things that are more bodily oriented, and so that's not what we're going for. And if this happens to you, we recommend that you wait for the second sensation in that area before moving on. Usually that second sensation will be a more traditional thing that the skin is sensing in that moment. Keep in mind that the skin is always sensing a huge amount of detail about your environment. As I mentioned in a previous video, it's actually among your most sensitive receptors. Every part of your skin is sensing an enormous amount of things from the environment in every moment. If you're not feeling that, or feeling really anything at all in an area, frankly, unless you've had some sort of neurological damage, it's just because you've been asking your brain not to inform you of what it's feeling in that area. We want to start asking it to do the opposite, to start letting you know what it senses. And we want to do that because it brings more and more of your overall system into the present moment. Remember, your senses only exist in the present moment. So this is a great technique to use to focus even more of yourself into the present. If you hit what I call a dead zone, an area where you can't feel anything, linger there for a moment or two until some sensation does arise. If it seems like nothing is going to arise, you can feel free to use some of the tactics mentioned in previous videos to speed things along. For example, you could lightly touch the area and then let go and see if you can sense not only the touch, but any subtle sensation that lingers after your touch has been lifted. Or you can sit in front of a fan. Or you can wear tight clothing. Or you can lie down so that you can feel pressure being applied to large sections of the back of your body if that's where you're having the difficulty. Or many other similar ideas to provide some heightened artificial stimulation. Some of you might have large dead zones. When this occurs, people often wonder if they should even be doing this exercise. You absolutely should. You have more of a gap to bridge than others do, but that's no big deal. It might take you a broader range of tactics and a bit more work, but this is a very important exercise for you. There could be some frustration involved. There probably will be some frustration involved. There may be even more than just some frustration involved, but my advice is to persevere and not give up. If you have a psychological or a physiological condition involving nerve pain or feeling all sorts of pain in your body that for some reason doctors maybe haven't even been able to figure out, they might even think it's a psychological, psychosomatic type thing. And focusing on the body during an exercise like this makes it worse, then, we have to deal with that, obviously. Now, if this only affects a section of your body, you can feel free to just skip that area and do the rest of your body. If it's whole body pain, though, and it's really just intensifying it to an unbearable level, you really might want to just skip this exercise. And I know that could be a little disappointing for you, but there's really not another good option for this. So if that's the case, just use one of the previous versions of the eraser exercise that worked well for you during this session. You might find that your mind wanders during the exercise and that when your attention returns, you've moved beyond, sometimes very far beyond, the part of your body that you last remember paying attention to. It's as if your body just kept doing the task unconsciously while your mind was wandering. When this happens and your attention returns to the exercise, you don't have to go back to the place you remember you were last focusing your mind before it began to drift. You can simply pick up from the place on your body where it's currently focused, finish the rest of your body from there, and then go back and do the areas that were skipped while your mind was wandering. Don't be concerned with how fast you go or how far you make it during your 1-hour meditation period. You only want to move as fast as you noticed sensation. When you notice sensation on a spot, immediately move on. If you don't notice anything, deal with that square as if it's a dead spot, but after that, move on to the next square. You might find this exercise super easy and be able to do several full rounds of your body during an hour. When you reach the tips of your toes and are done, just start again from the top of your head. So you don't go from head to toe and then back from toe to head. You go from head to toe and then from head to toe again. Or if you start at your feet, then you go from toe to head, from toe to head. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, occasionally someone can spend their entire hour diligently sensing and never get beyond their head. Just accept that. That's fine too, and keep working with the exercise. Most people are going to fall somewhere in between. However far you make it, however fast or slow you go, as long as you are focused on the exercise, just accept that it's what's fine for you and it's working, and just keep at it. There's no reason to be frustrated, and again, this is not a competition. It doesn't matter how the exercise is showing up for other people. We'll be working on scanning your entire body with various forms of practices for a couple more sessions, so you'll have plenty of time to make it all the way through your body. For now, just focus on leaving no spot behind. You want to be as comprehensive as you possibly can. We're asking your brain to systematically create a much higher resolution body map than you've ever had before, and that can take some time. Even though it feels like you have a lot of sensitivity on your skin, you're about to discover the degree to which that is actually the case, or more correctly, not the case. There's a fun exercise that you can do to highlight this. Ask a friend to take 2 pens and stand behind you. They will touch you with 1 or 2 pens a number of times. Now, as they touch you, you're to say whether you think they're touching you with one pen or two pens on your back. Now, when they do this, each time they do it, if they start with the pens far apart, you want them to move the pens closer and closer and closer together. If they start with the pens on a central point, then you want them to move them further and further apart. What you're going to discover, even after hearing these instructions, is that there will be a point when you think there is only one pen touching you, even though there are actually two pens that are touching you. And when you ask your friend how much space is between the pens, I think you're going to be surprised at how much really is between those two pens. You know, logically, it will seem to you like you should be able to detect the two pens touching you, but physically, you'll feel both as one, basically. It'll feel like only one pen is touching you. This exercise has been used in countless introductory psychology classes to make the point of how our brain's map of our body is very different from what we actually feel and perceive. In this version of the eraser method, we're beginning with the process of increasing this resolution. The brain and body are an amazing system, and they're capable of so much more than we use them for by default. You've already started on an incredible journey of discovery to uncover just how true this is in your own life. Okay, so as you're doing your blocks, again, you just want to maybe think of starting somewhere like right up at the top of your head, and you maybe do one block right at the top, and then over, and then like this, and you just kind of are spiraling around and around and around and around and so on, until you get to your arms and whatnot, and then just follow the instructions that I said for them. And you don't have to do it exactly like I said. When you get to your arms, you could do it another way. You could do blocks just all the way around, sort of this way. Just make sure that you get the inside of your arms and the side of your torso and whatnot. All right, so you get the idea. That's it for this method's instruction. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time.